I never thought grief could make people greedy. But I learned that the hard way, standing beside my sister at our father's funeral, pretending we were united while she already knew what she'd done. The day started quietly. Grey skies, cold wind, and that heavy silence that follows every goodbye. Dad's casket was surrounded by white lilies, his favorite. Mom was long gone, so it was just me, my sister Claire, and a few close relatives. I remember holding her hand when they lowered the casket, feeling her squeeze mine. It felt like family, for a moment. But that was before I realized she'd already taken everything Dad meant for both of us. After the service, everyone came back to the house for coffee and sandwiches, the kind of awkward gathering where people whisper memories between bites. Claire kept busy, moving around, smiling politely, making sure everyone saw her as the perfect daughter. I just sat in the corner, scrolling through old pictures on my phone, Dad teaching us how to ride bikes, laughing at backyard barbecues, Christmas mornings with messy wrapping paper everywhere. Then Uncle Pete called us into Dad's study. "Your father left everything in order," he said. "You two will just need to sign a few documents once probate starts." Claire smiled softly. "Of course. We'll handle it together." Together. That word would haunt me later. A week passed. Life moved slowly. Grief has that strange rhythm, where everything feels both too fast and painfully still. I started cleaning out Dad's house, going through boxes and old letters. Claire said she'd handle the financial stuff, because she was better at paperwork. I didn't think twice. She was the older one, calm, organized, trustworthy. But then small things started to feel off. When I asked about the will, she said, "Oh, it's all standard. Don't worry, you'll get your share once the lawyer finalizes everything." Her tone was casual, too casual. A few days later, the lawyer called me directly, not Claire. He asked why I hadn't signed the final release. I told him I hadn't seen anything to sign. Silence on the line. "Strange," he said. "Your sister mentioned she already showed it to you." My stomach dropped. That night, I drove to her place. She lived in the same house where she and her husband, Mark, had moved after Dad helped them with the down payment. I remember sitting in my car outside, watching their living room lights flicker. They looked comfortable, happy. Too happy for someone grieving. When she opened the door, her smile froze the moment she saw me. "Why didn't you tell me the lawyer called?" I asked. She blinked. "He did. Don't lie to me, Claire. He said you told him I'd already signed." Her face tightened. "You're overreacting. I just handled some details. It's complicated." Complicated. Another word that meant, you're not getting the full story. We argued quietly at first, but years of tension cracked open fast. She accused me of being careless, irresponsible. Dad trusted me more with money. I shot back that trust didn't mean ownership. The next day, she blocked my number. Weeks passed. The lawyer eventually sent me a copy of the will. Dad had left us equal shares, 50-50, plus a small account set aside for donations to his favorite charity. But when I checked the estate records, one account was missing. A large one. Almost $200,000. I called the lawyer again. He hesitated before saying, that account was liquidated before probate started. Your sister provided authorization. I remember sitting in silence, heart pounding, feeling the betrayal settle in like cold air through a broken window. She'd taken it. Before he even passed. But here's the thing about secrets, they never stay buried. And Claire had made one small mistake. A few days later, while clearing Dad's desk, I found a sealed envelope addressed to both of us. His handwriting was shaky, but still clear. Inside was a short note. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Everything I've built, it's meant to bring you closer, not drive you apart. Be fair, be honest, and remember, greed destroys more than poverty ever will. There was also a printed list, every account, every asset. And right there, at the bottom, was the missing account. The same one Claire claimed didn't exist. My hands trembled. The truth was now in front of me, but I wasn't sure what to do. Confront her again. Go to the lawyer. The police? Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. If you want to know the truth about your sister, check the account logs from Dad's bank. Ask for manager David Rowe. My heart stopped. Someone else knew. But who? And more importantly, how deep did her betrayal really go? I didn't sleep that night. The words from that anonymous text kept looping in my mind. Ask for manager David Rowe. It felt like a trap, but also like a key I couldn't ignore. The next morning, I drove to the bank. It was cold and quiet, the kind of morning where you can hear your own thoughts too loudly. When I asked for David Rowe, the teller's expression shifted slightly, like she knew something, but didn't want to. A few minutes later, a man in his 40s came out, wearing a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ah, you're Robert, right? Claire's brother. I nodded slowly. She mentioned you might come by someday, he said. Why don't we step into my office? Every word felt heavier than it should. He closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit. I assume this is about your father's accounts. Yes, I said. I know there was another account, a joint one, under his name and Claire's. She said it was gone before he passed. David sighed and tapped a few keys on his computer. Your father opened that account 15 years ago. It was originally intended as a backup for estate taxes. But, he hesitated. 2 months before his death, your sister transferred the balance into her personal account. Without his permission. He looked at me carefully. All I can say is, the authorization form had your father's digital signature, but the timestamp was after he'd been admitted to hospice. My throat tightened. Meaning, unless your father logged in from a hospital bed on strong medication, something's off. I felt my chest tighten with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. She'd forged his signature. While he was dying. But before I could say another word, David leaned closer. You didn't hear that from me. And one more thing, your sister wasn't alone in it. What do you mean? He opened a file and glanced at the paper before sliding it across the desk. See this transfer chain? The money didn't just go to her account. A portion, about $75,000, went to someone named Mark Rivers. Mark. Her husband. When I left the bank, my hands were shaking. Not just from anger, from disbelief. Dad had trusted her with everything, and she turned his death into a payday. But part of me still wanted to believe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe Dad had approved it and just didn't tell me. Maybe she needed the money for something urgent. So I decided to test her, not confront her directly, but set a small trap. That evening, I sent her a simple text from a new number, Hey Claire. I heard Dad's account might still have unresolved funds. Maybe we should talk. She replied almost instantly, Who is this? Someone who knows what you did, I wrote. Stop texting me, she fired back. Tell Mark I said hi. Hope he enjoyed the $75,000. There was a 3-minute pause before she replied again. Who are you? What do you want? That was all the confirmation I needed. A few days later, I went back to Dad's house to finish cleaning. I'd avoided the basement for weeks. It was dusty, full of memories I didn't want to face. But that night, I went down. And that's where I found the flash drive. It was inside an old cigar box, labeled tax records. When I plugged it into my laptop, I saw folders named House Deed, Accounts, and one called Claire_2023. Inside that last folder were scanned letters, emails between Claire and Mark. And as I read them, my stomach turned. He's too sick to notice anything now. Once it's in my account, we'll say it was a gift. Don't worry, Rob won't question it, he never does. They planned it. Together. While Dad was fading away in hospice. Every word sliced through me like glass. I closed the laptop and just sat there, in the dark basement, listening to my own breath. Grief turned to anger. Anger turned to something colder, clarity. A week later, I went to a lawyer. Not Dad's lawyer, someone new. A woman named Evelyn Pierce, known for handling estate fraud cases. She listened silently as I told her everything, then said, "If what you're saying can be proved, that's criminal misappropriation. We'll need bank records, emails, and maybe testimony from that manager, David Rowe." I handed her a USB drive with everything I'd found. She looked at me and said, "You ready for a storm? Because once we file, it won't be private anymore." I nodded. She made it public the moment she stole from him. Within 2 weeks, Claire received a formal notice, an inquiry into suspicious transfers from our father's estate. She called me for the first time in months. Her voice was trembling. "Rob, what the hell did you do?" "I did what Dad would have wanted," I said quietly. "The truth. You're going to destroy this family," she shouted. "You already did." Then came the silence. The kind that feels final. But karma doesn't always come fast. Sometimes, it takes its time, waiting until the lies start collapsing on their own. 3 weeks later, I got a message from Mark. A voice note. His voice was shaky, panicked. "Look, man. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Claire said your dad wanted her to handle everything. I didn't know she forged anything. Please, don't drag me into this." But that message told me more than he realized. She was losing control of the story. And she was about to lose a lot more than that. Because just as I was preparing for the next legal step, I got another unexpected message, this time, from David, the bank manager. He sounded nervous. "Robert, we need to talk. Your sister came here today. She tried to withdraw from another account in your name." I froze. My name. She was still trying to take more. And I had no idea how far she was willing to go. When David told me Claire tried to access an account in my name, something in me snapped. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the sheer audacity, the bottomless greed. I asked him to freeze everything immediately, and he agreed. But deep down, I knew, if she was that desperate, something had already started to crumble on her end. That night, I couldn't shake the thought of her face when she realized the walls were closing in. 4 years, she'd been the one in control, the responsible sister, the one everyone trusted. Now, she was cornered. 2 days later, Evelyn, my lawyer, called. "Robert," she said, "you might want to sit down for this. Claire's husband just filed for divorce." "What?" I blurted out. Apparently, he's cooperating with our side. He turned over their joint bank statements, texts, and even recordings. "Looks like your sister moved the last of the money into a crypto wallet last month, and it's gone." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Evelyn sighed. "Mark's claiming he didn't know about the forgery, but based on his records, she's been lying to him, too. She told him your dad changed the will to cut you out completely." My head spun. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd betrayed everyone. And then Evelyn said something that stuck. She thought she could control the narrative. But greed always overplays its hand. A week later, I saw Claire for the first time since all of it began. We met at a small cafe near the courthouse, at her request. She looked different. Pale, tired, makeup smudged. Her hands kept fidgeting with the cup. "Why are you doing this to me?" she asked, her voice trembling. I stared at her for a long moment. "Doing this to you? Claire, you forged Dad's signature. You stole from me. From him." Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared. "Okay. You don't understand, Mark lost his job, the bills were piling up, Dad was dying, and he always trusted me more. I just took what I thought I deserved before it was too late." I leaned back. "Before it was too late? For him or for you?" She didn't answer. Then she whispered, almost defensively, "You have no idea what it's like being the one who has to hold everything together while everyone else falls apart." Her words stung, because for a split second, I saw the scared sister behind the schemer, the girl who always tried to fix things when we were kids. But then I remembered the note Dad left. "Be fair, be honest. Greed destroys more than poverty ever will." I stood up. "You didn't hold it together, Claire. You burned it down." The court process that followed was brutal. Documents, hearings, statements, months of slow-motion fallout. Claire's lawyer tried to argue that Dad gave her verbal consent, but the digital timestamps, forged signatures, and Mark's confession crushed that defense. Eventually, the judge ruled that Claire had committed estate fraud. She was ordered to return what she could, though most of the money was unrecoverable, and placed on probation with community service. But the real punishment wasn't legal. It was social. Word spread fast in our small town. Friends stopped calling. Her husband moved out. Even her daughter, Emily, refused to speak to her for a while after learning the truth. Karma didn't knock, it kicked the door down. A few months after the ruling, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Claire. The handwriting was shaky, the same way Dad's had been in his final days. "Rob, I know there's nothing I can say to fix what I did. I just want you to know I never stopped loving Dad, or you. I thought I was protecting us, but I ended up losing everything. If there's any part of you that can forgive me someday, I'd understand if it takes time." Claire, I read that letter a dozen times. The first few, I felt nothing. Then, slowly, I felt the anger begin to soften, not because she deserved forgiveness, but because I didn't want to carry her sin anymore. Dad wouldn't have wanted us to end like this. So I wrote back. Just one line, "I forgive you, but I won't forget." A year later, I visited Dad's grave. The sun was setting, painting the sky with that same grey-orange hue it had the day we buried him. I brought lilies, the same ones he loved. When I looked up, I noticed someone else standing a few rows away, holding flowers. It was Claire. She looked thinner, quieter, almost peaceful. We didn't speak, just nodded at each other. For the first time in a long while, there was no bitterness. Just silence, and maybe a little understanding. As she walked away, I whispered, "I hope you've learned something, sis." Maybe she heard it. Maybe she didn't. But that was the last time I saw her. Now, every time I pass Dad's old house, I think about how easily love turns to greed when fear takes over. She hid our inheritance thinking she could control fate. But fate had other plans. Karma always finds its way home, sometimes through a letter, sometimes through loss, and sometimes through a quiet moment at a gravesite. And me. I've made peace with it. Because in the end, forgiveness isn't for the person who wronged you, it's for the one who survived them. Sometimes, the people closest to you break your heart in ways strangers never could. But what defines you isn't how much they took, it's how much strength you found after they did. I don't hate her anymore, but I'll never forget what she did. Sometimes, karma doesn't come loud, it comes slow, steady, and right on time. If this story touched you, tell me in the comments what you would have done. And if you've ever faced betrayal like this, share this video with someone who needs to remember, what's hidden in the dark always finds its way to light.